Hello and welcome to Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. I'm very excited about my interview, my guest today. His name is Mr. BrahmaBull. I first met him over at Dick's Division, which is what they call Comics Division channel, the Yelling at Park Cars stream, which is so much fun. And he has just a really cool style, a very calm demeanor, very intelligent guy. And you can find him streaming on Rumble at BrahmaBull. Please welcome Brahma.
Hey, Keri. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I
Thank you for all
love.
those nice things you said.
Oh, you're welcome.
Calm,
They're
smart. I
true.
don't know about that.
I am so happy that you wore your elegant smoking jacket, so people here at Deprogram can see it if they haven't. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it came about because of you. When you were on that first stream with us and you nicknamed me the elegant smoker, since I'm always smoking on stream, that stuck. And then my avatar, I had it designed by Abomination AJ, who's another YouTuber, and we did a smoking jacket in that. So then everybody just bugged me until I actually bought one. So I got it a week ago when you were on with us Monday night. That was the first night I had it. So
It's so nice.
it's fun.
I'm not wearing a smoking jacket, but I am wearing my nice silk kimono. So we're classing it up a bit today.
Yeah. Taking
But
it back to the 20s or 30s or something
yeah,
like that.
exactly. So for anyone who's not familiar with you, can you just tell people a little bit about the places where you can be found and a little bit about the show that we met on, Yelling at Park Cars?
Sure. So I started doing the YouTube thing and really didn't keep up on it. But I kind of started it doing the videos and everything just so that I can meet some of the people here on the YouTube side, the creator side. So it really doesn't bother me that I haven't done a whole lot on my page and it hasn't really grown. I've recently made the jump over to Rumble. So I'm over there and I do a Saturday night show that's about bourbon and hockey. So
Bourbon
me
and
and that
hockey.
70s rock fan. Yep. So
Okay, and we've got a link for that below. That's BrahmaBull at Rumble. So you're not doing that on YouTube at all.
no, I don't. That 70s rock fan does half of the show uh, on YouTube. We co-stream it.
Okay.
So it's simulcasting on both, but we've each got our fans in both different chats and everything, and it's we do it live. A whole bunch of people come to Rumble, a whole bunch of people stay on YouTube. But
Mhm.
it's doing pretty well on Rumble. We're really happy. We're about 18 to 20 episodes in. So,
Cool.
and we're coming up to the busy time in hockey, the playoffs. So
Cool.
it'll be
I
good.
Here's the only thing I've heard about hockey recently, and maybe this is a big story. It must be because I heard about it. I don't know anything about hockey. Is that there are some players who have said, I guess they were being forced to wear rainbow colored jerseys. And I saw that a few of them had said they're not going to wear them because it goes against their religious beliefs or they don't personally choose to wear them. Is that a big story in the hockey world right now?
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, the NHL, I mean, they have different nights. They have military night. They have all these things. All the teams have these things, but they do have an alphabet night, LGBTQ night, and most of the teams are asked to wear in their pregame skate, yeah, some kind of rainbow. It's got to be on the uniform somewhere, that kind of thing. So they usually make up, brand new jerseys and then auction them off at the end of the night. But yeah, there's a few players that it just doesn't mesh with their beliefs, and they've said, "Yeah, I don't feel comfortable marketing something that I don't believe in or approve of." So
I saw one of the statements. I thought it was very even-handed. It just said, I love I love everyone who comes to our shows. Everyone should feel welcome, but I personally don't want to wear this because it conflicts with my personal beliefs. But it has no
mhm.
bearing on like who's included as part of the audience. It's just I'm not going to wear this.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I'm a Christian. I know you're a Christian. It's kind of that belief of, yeah, you can. Well, this will come out a little bit wrong, but love the sinner, hate the sin type
Hmm.
thing. I can have friends that are gay. I can have people in my life that are gay. Doesn't mean I necessarily would condone that lifestyle
Hmm.
personally for me. So that's just their religious values, and it's also some of it is their political values because a lot of hockey players are from Russia, and it doesn't go over well in Russia. and Putin does what Putin does. So if they've still got family over there, if they're over here promoting things that Russia is completely against, then that could be a major issue for them over there, because you don't know what they're willing to do over there. So
Yeah.
there is a segment of that as well. So
Yeah. Let's I want to talk about your religious beliefs, but before we go there, so you said just a little more of your backstory on what led you to start speaking your opinions online. You said that you wanted to meet some of the other people in the YouTube space, but what compelled you to share your mind, like your opinions?
well, I'm an extrovert. I'm a salesperson, so I like talking to people. If we go out to a restaurant or even to the grocery store, chances are I'm going to strike up a conversation with somebody. My daughters, who are now 19 and 14, they started watching a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. Most of it I didn't care for them to be watching, but since it was in the house, then I started to discover some of the people that that I liked and that had ideas closer to mine. Really happened during the Summer of Love. I was looking for the riot, all the riots and stuff going on. I was looking for footage of that, and I think that got me to D-Day Cobra, who's
Oh, Jeremy.
Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, back when he was running it a little bit more politically on his personal channel. That got me to Gary, FNT, comics, all that kind of stuff. So then, yeah, comics. Comics would be probably the most political of the group from FNT. So I started watching his stuff and really liked that. I started doing a couple videos just to, get my feet wet, and then started reaching out to some people because, yeah, I wanted to talk to people. And I had been in chats for a little while, so, my name was somewhat known. But
Did you have any
that's kind of
fear
how it went.
about sharing your opinions online?
Not really. I mean, since most of the stuff I'm doing is still on YouTube through other people's channels, I'm still careful about what we say because YouTube. But I mean, for the most part, I can, we kind of change our language a little bit and won't say certain words, but we're still able to really express our thoughts as much as we want. So,
But I mean, personal blowback. There's so many people I hear from, even now when it's gotten a lot safer to say what you think about things, I think. I still hear from people who are like, "Oh, I love what you do, but I'm afraid to even like your video or on Facebook or something because I don't want people to know because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing my social circle or my job or my sense of security or something." Do you have any of those fears?
eh, I mean, there's a little bit of worry about the job because I do work for a corporation that does do DEI stuff. But I've kind of, over the past 2 years, kind of changed what I was doing. I was self-employed but subcontracted through a company. I didn't agree with their take on things, so I ended up leaving them after 15 years, leaving a 6-figure job and starting from scratch, doing a franchise thing on my own.
Wow.
Joe Biden kind of ruined that with the economy, so that one kind of crashed and burned over the last year. But then, I had backup plans, and I'm doing that now. So I'm back to
You seem like a
not
very
worrying about the money all that much, so I
yeah.
can do stuff like this and have fun.
You seem like a very confident person.
Yeah,
Like, and as a salesman, maybe that's part of the salesman demeanor, but a lot of times
yeah,
I talk to people and they go through this period of fear of speaking and then they get over it. I've been able to meet so many people doing these interviews of just really extraordinary, interesting people and not all of them went through that period of fear, I guess, but some of them did and or had to learn that confidence. But you just seem like naturally confident.
I think I think that may have been part of what got me real lucky. I mean, I was only on YouTube doing stuff and talking to people for about 2 months before I got on to Yelling at Parked Cars with Comics Division. Got invited
Wow.
to be a guest on there, and I was on there one night. And by the next week, they had said we would like you to be on, all the time if you want to.
That's
So
awesome.
that
I
doesn't
love it.
happen to most people. A
Yeah.
zero sub channel getting a chance on. I think he had 11,000 at that time, something like that. So,
Mhm.
and now I've been on there a year. Last week was your 1 year
Yeah.
anniversary and my 1 year anniversary for yelling at parked cars.
Well, congrats. It's
Thank
been
you.
a fast year. Okay, so
Yes.
I do want to talk to you. You mentioned in preparation for this interview, maybe we could talk a little bit about Christianity. I love having these conversations, and
Sure.
to the atheists in my deprogram audience, yes, I'm going to ask you to be tolerant. Once again, I'm kidding. They're very tolerant. They listen to me talk about this a lot lately. Um, and it's so funny. The last episode I did that was really specifically sort of for Christians.
Mhm.
I got a message immediately from someone who's like, I was an atheist. I know that episode was for Christians, but I was like cheering and agreeing and like, okay, that's
Well, that's
cool.
good.
Like we can talk about that stuff. So you were raised Christian, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to private Christian school from preschool all the way through high school. So, I mean, I did that. We were members of the church. My dad's actually a deacon at his church, which, he doesn't live anywhere near me, but
Mhm.
you know, we were pretty religious in the household.
Mhm.
Um,
And
you
did
know,
you
to the point that like, you know, but was a cuss word until we were about 8 or 9 years old. The
Yes.
parents, they were strict about certain things and not about others, but language and that kind of stuff. I mean, we didn't see, the real adult side of our parents until much later when we were in high school and stuff. We kind of figured out, oh, they're doing a lot of stuff, that we didn't know they were doing.
do
So
you think that's good?
to grow up Christian or
Or to grow
to
up
have
not
those
seeing all
stricter
that
rules.
those stricter rules and to like not know that your parents have this whole adult life?
I think it can be good because, with my girls, I got married at age 21. So me and my wife have been together 20 years
Oh, congrats.
this May. So I didn't really have a party life or, I didn't have my 20s or my 30s because, we had kids immediately, honeymoon baby.
Mhm.
So like me and bourbon and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I would like to have, kept the adult drinking habits a little bit more from my kids, but at the same time, you know, didn't really start showing them until, they were 10,
Older.
12, that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think it's not a bad thing for kids to be exposed to it, but at some point, I think as parents, you've got to sacrifice a little bit to, stay kind of your kids' heroes. So,
Yes.
I mean, if you're coming home pissed drunk every single night, probably not a good look
Probably
for
not a good look.
while they're in their development years. So, yeah.
Yeah. So how does your Christianity inform your worldview? And that's one question. And another question would be like, what is your? I know you kind of want because I'm a new Christian, so
Mhm.
um, a lot of things seem new to me. I have these new revelations where I'm like, oh, I get this now. And then sometimes people have been Christian for a while, like, yeah, duh. I mean, they don't say it that rude, but it's sort of
Right.
like, yeah, that's like new for you, but okay. So how does your Christianity inform your worldview? And like what is your relationship with God been like over the course of your life?
Sure. Well, I'd have to say I envy you because when you grow up Christian, grow up in the church,
Mm.
I think it's a little bit different. Most of the people that I went to high school with, they either stayed Christian or went full atheist because that second you get that taste of life outside of Christian school, Christian home, whatever, first time you're on your own, yeah, the rebellion hits pretty
Yeah.
hard for a lot of people. So it was never an issue for me, but I've seen that with so many of my friends.
Yeah.
And, I'm Christian, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a great Christian. I do smoke, I do drink,
You
I've got
great.
plenty of vices. So, but how it informs my worldview, I've always been conservative too. Um, so I grew up in the church, but I also grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh. Every car ride that we took, I probably started listening to Rush in about third grade. So I've always been highly political. during high school, I would take, I was the yearbook editor, so I would have Rush Limbaugh on in the yearbook room. So I've it's kind of informed me in that way because um, I've always been what most people would consider a one issue voter, which is abortion. So
Mhm.
that's always been where the Christianity mixes with the conservatism for me.
We actually have a little bit in common because I was raised in a Southern Baptist home,
Yeah.
and um, and also my dad listened to a lot of Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, yeah, in the car. But I was one of those people who rebelled, like you're talking about, when I went away. Well, first of all, in our home, uh, I did not see Christianity modeled. So what I saw was hypocrisy modeled.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point around like maybe 14 or 15 is when I started rebelling. I had already moved out of the house. I was going to a science and math boarding school. So I went through that period you're talking about that some people went through, and I became for like 20 years, I was pretty anti-Christian, anti-Rush Limbaugh, anti-conservatism, went
Yeah.
way over there. Um, and so, uh, yeah, I might be a little bit like some of those people you're saying that like go hardcore atheist. Although I never consider myself atheist, but um, so what do you when you, let me figure out how to phrase this. When you say you're a one issue voter, or some people call you that on the issue of abortion,
Mhm.
why is that so personal to you? I'm curious about that because that's something that during those years, those 20 years that I was like agnostic and anti-Christian, I really
Mhm.
didn't view it as a lot. I didn't view it as a life. The left is very
Right.
good at convincing you it's no big deal. It's like this is no different than having your
Yeah. It's a
tonsils
medical
removed.
procedure. It's
Right.
women's health care.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. Like, why is that issue so important to you? And what does it mean?
Well, I've just always believed that life does begin at conception.
Yeah.
So abortion, I mean, even I'm not Catholic, so I don't have a problem with birth control, but I do have a problem with even like Plan B. I'm not a big fan of in vitro because, you know, even with in vitro, you're gonna have the viable egg or the viable fetus, but you're also going to have a number that are destroyed usually. But
The embryos they don't use.
since yeah, the embryos, not fetus, but yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you believe that life begins at conception, then you really can't look at it as anything other than murder. So
Mhm.
it became pretty simple for me, and the amount of abortions that are done in this country, that is a ton of child murder in my eyes. And I don't think it's the decision of the adult because the decision was made when you decided to have sex.
Mhm.
I mean, that's where you gave up your right to decide whether you're going to have a kid. Because that ultimately is the product of, being an adult having sex.
What do you say when people ask you about, because I know all their arguments and questions. Like, what do you say
Hmm.
when they ask you, what about people who are raped? They didn't make the choice.
They didn't make the choice, but I don't think that two wrongs makes a right either. I don't think that, you know, murdering a baby is the right answer for that as well. And unfortunate things and really bad things happen to all of us in our lives. And that is a horrible thing, rape and incest. But I don't know that that means that automatically you get a pass on murdering a child.
Can I come back to your religious beliefs, your Christianity, and your
Sure.
relationship with God? Um, if you don't mind me asking such a personal question. I haven't asked this personal of a question before, I
No,
don't
that's fine.
think. But what is that relationship like for you in a way that you might be comfortable talking about it
Relationship with
with
God,
God? Yeah.
mostly personal.
Okay.
I've got a church that I do watch online. I haven't been in the physical church in a little while. And like I was saying, envying you as a new Christian a little bit. Some of the things that become old hat to us,
Mhm.
that have grown up in it and, have done it their whole lives. some of it just kind of loses its luster, I guess is the best way to put it. But my relationship is a personal one. I believe in Christ. I believe that he died for us and was risen on the third day, and I mean, that he took away our sins or washes our sins off of us. And I try to live that way. I try to do things that are informed by my Christian beliefs, and I try to present myself that way the best that I can. I mean, but like I said, we've all got vices. But yeah, reading, studying, just trying to I tried to, let's see, what are some of the habits I tried to instill? Every morning on the way to school, when I did drive the kids to school, we would, say prayers while we were driving. I tried to pray, nightly, without fail. And I tried to pray multiple times throughout the day just to, have that connection with God. So.
I think that's so important. The ritual aspect of it, like the habits, instilling the good habits, like even if you don't want to, it's sort of like going to the gym, like, I don't want to. And then when you get there, you're like, okay, great, I did it and I feel better. I'm glad I went. And that's how I've come to think of prayer. If you do it regularly or have certain times where I'm doing it, like right before going to bed, for example, is one, or right before I eat or something. I think that's why probably people do it at those times, and so that it becomes a practice. But one of the things I've noticed as a new Christian is that I didn't realize until recently how shallow my faith in prayer was until the past year or two, going through a lot of hard stuff, and then going and telling when I finally went and told some Christian sisters
Mhm.
and what was happening, I need prayer, and had, a couple of them praying for me. That night, Brahma, things changed, started to turn around. It was crazy. It was like, it made
Yeah.
me think of that verse, when two or more are gathered in my name. And so,
Right.
and now
Having
I've
a
had a,
prayer ring is different than
yes,
just praying for yourself. Yeah.
yes, having others pray for you. And so that made me think more about, like, why would God want us to pray for each other? Well, duh. It takes our focus off of ourself. It's giving your
Yeah.
friends something to do if you go and share your trouble with them instead of thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna be a burden." It's like, "No, no, this is good for them too to have something to pray for that's other than themselves," you know?
Yeah.
And, it strengthens those bonds, I think. So I've really,
Well, and
yeah.
I'm a big believer that in prayer, I try to pray about the things I'm thankful for more so than asking God for things.
Mhm.
And if it's something that I need an answer on, or something that, you know, praying for somebody else's health, that kind of thing. Yes. But most of the time I'm praying for, thanking God for the blessings that, he's bestowed on me and my family and the people that I know, and praying for people. So
Yeah.
I,
Gratitude, prayers for others, for
yeah,
sometimes,
it's not just
forgiveness.
making wishes like to a genie. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
some people pray that way. I don't. I think being grateful to God is more where you're going to get return from from the Holy Spirit, more
Yeah.
so than just, treating it like, I wish you would give me this, I wish you would give me that kind of stuff.
I think maybe it's a lot of times maybe people who are sort of more, they're not Christians, they're not believers yet, but they're open-minded.
Hmm.
And sometimes what draws them to the possibility of God being there is like needing help with something. And so that's how the prayers start, is like
Yeah.
almost like to a genie. If you are real, I need help with this thing, kind of thing. And I think that's good. That's a good entryway. But then I'm so glad you said that, because w- once you like once you become a believer, I think the nature of your prayers change. One, because you do have so much gratitude. And even if you're like not a believer and you're listening to this conversation, there's value to be had in taking stock of your day at the end of every day, whether you believe in a deed or not, and saying, these are the things I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
Like neuroscience shows that,
What good happened to me today
yes, that
versus how is this day just horrible? That kind of thing.
exactly. Your brain, like they've shown in studies that if you sit down and talk about what makes you grateful, what you're grateful for, your mood increases.
Hmm.
So,
It's got to release some chemical up there.
yeah,
I mean, because you're thinking about things that made you happy rather
exactly.
than things that made you upset.
Right.
Yeah.
So, where do you think we're at? This is a question I ask people a lot in interviews 'cause I'm
Mhm.
just curious to get everyone's read on this, but where are we at in the culture war? You're someone who's been conservative your whole life. What do you make of the past 5 years? The what is referred to as the woke ideology, and where are we at?
Yeah, I think we're in a lot of trouble. Um, I mean, part of me looks at what's going on and sees revelations starting to come true before our eyes. Um, I really don't think that I don't think that we're on a path that leads to anything but destruction in this country. If we continue down this path. And
Mhm.
it's not just the woke, it's just the complete lack of morals and ethics in the country and in the world, frankly, all around. I mean, the I don't know specific examples. I mean, sex has become a commodity rather than something that's really held dear.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know how many 18-year-olds now get to the age of 18 still a virgin. It doesn't seem to be many. I mean, the things that we celebrate are not things that are morally good or good for your soul.
Mhm.
So, and we're seeing it. I mean, what we've been doing in the culture war, we've been seeing it all over the place. I mean, everything that you don't want your kids exposed to is what they're being exposed to now, and earlier and earlier. And I mean, now with cell phones and laptops that are easily accessible to kids, and kids use when my kids were very small, they could figure out how to unlock their grandmother's phone and get into whatever they wanted a lot better than my mother could. So, I mean, kids are good at getting into technology, and that's not always a great thing.
What did their grandma have on her phone, though? Was it recipes? I'm just kidding.
Candy Crush, that kind of stuff, but
Okay.
nothing bad. But the fact that they
Right.
grew up with that technology, they're
They know how to
it
use
doesn't
it.
it doesn't matter what you've told them to do or not to do. If they have access to the technology, the stuff is going to find them. I mean,
Yes.
there's so much bad on the internet that it's impossible not to get exposed to things that you don't necessarily need to be exposed to at a younger age.
What would you say to people who have a fear of having kids right now in this kind of climate, cultural climate?
I had fear of having kids, and we weren't in this cultural climate. I mean, that was back in what 2004. I mean, we weren't in a great place, but we weren't where we are now. I mean, having kids was always one of my biggest fears. It just kind of happened without us planning it because honeymoon baby. Um, but you know, for me, it was always a fear of um, I know where I'm destined to go, but bringing another soul into the world and then having the responsibility for it eternally was always something that bugged me. Because yeah, you only get really one shot to instill things into your kids, and I would be pretty much terrified of it now because the way the schools are going, there you have no control. I mean, homeschooling is about the only option, and it depends on your kids' personalities whether they take to that or whether they're just going to rebel automatically because they're not getting to do what their friends are getting to do. They're not getting to have a phone when their friends have a phone, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of terrifying as a new parent, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because for me, didn't have near as much going on TV shows. Cartoons were pretty safe for the most part. I mean, there were some very annoying ones, but like Caillou, hated that kid.
I don't remember
But
that one.
oh, that one of the most annoying little kid shows ever made. But
Okay.
I mean, my kids grew up on like the Wiggles, which was also just annoying, but it was at least decent annoying, not you know, uh, de- not immoral filth annoying. So
Yeah. Wait a
yeah,
minute, I'm trying to think of so how old your kids are for 2004. Did they watch the Boomafoo?
not that I know of.
Okay, never mind.
I mean,
Sorry, that's a weird
back
tangent.
then the Wiggles were the big thing. I think Teletubbies was around, but I
Yeah,
didn't.
probably.
That one was too far for me to,
Too weird.
watch with them. I was just no, we're not watching that one.
I
um,
Do you think that there are going to
Yeah.
be more homeschooling options and alternatives cropping up though? Because I'm thinking about where I live in sort of the outskirts of Austin, in very very un-Austin area,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of options. There are different classical schools, um, Christian schools, and then there's also classical conversations where a lot of these different Christian homeschool groups come together. They do things like they have a prom every year, and they
Right.
still get to socialize, and they're going, from what I understand, a lot of them do, it's sort of split. They do, like, maybe 2 or 3 days at home and the other days at school. So it's
Or
like
one parent
right,
teaches the English
right,
and history, and the other that's good at another parent that's good at math. You may send your kids over to their place to
right.
learn math, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that may be the only answer for conservatism at this point. I mean, we lost the schools. The only way we're getting
Yeah,
them back, it's going to take the same amount of time that it took to lose them.
yeah,
So you're going to have conservative children, raised conservatively, get through college and still be conservative. And then they've got to want to become teachers to get conservatives back into the schools.
yeah,
And they've got to get the opportunity to. So there's got to be enough of them to get those jobs and at least try to make a change. Because right now, I mean, my oldest is college age, and she's like me. Because I forced her to listen to Fox News and everything. I didn't let the kids control the radio in the car very often, so they know a ton of classic rock, a ton of '90s
yes,
rock, and then they know a whole bunch of talk radio. So I mean,
nice.
Mark Levin, Rush up until his unfortunate death. They like Gutfeld. They like a lot more of the mainstream, Fox News type stuff compared to what we do on YouTube. But a lot
Yeah,
of what we do on YouTube, even though it can be informative, is not necessarily meant for kids anyway. So
right.
I don't need them watching our shows,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm kind of glad they don't.
Yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, I think it'll take as long to take it back as it took for us to lose it.
I
And there still aren't enough people that are interested in doing it yet. I think we're not seeing. We used to say that the right was the silent majority, and I don't think we are anymore. I think we're just silent, and we're shrinking a lot.
really? That's what you
Yeah,
think?
yeah.
Because coming
I
from
I
the left,
mhm.
maybe we have a totally different perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. Because of who I hang out with, maybe that's why, but, I was super woke for 20 years. I wasn't just a Democrat, I was a social justice warrior, I was one of those people,
Yeah,
and I left, and maybe it's a function of who I know because of the podcast I do now, but I know a lot of people who've left social justice. I know a lot of people who are part of that walk away movement, and
yep.
then in this last election, like, I went, maybe there's somebody new who hasn't seen Deprogrammed before, but I went from being one of the people who cried the first time Trump won to
Yeah,
voting for him 4 years later, and I also know other progressives who they voted for him who or people who were foreign progressives or still considered themselves progressive even who voted for him this
yeah.
last time around, never would have thought they would have done it. One of them, a friend of my husband's is, he was like, "First time I've ever voted for a Republican, I feel weird," like, like, and so my perspective is that the right is growing, as a maybe almost a backlash to how crazy the left has gotten. Do you think I'm
And
wrong?
a portion of it probably is because we have seen a lot of the walk away thing, and
Mhm.
there are a lot of people that as we've talked about before, the left them. The
Yeah,
the thing that I'm seeing though that is disheartening, and what makes me a little bit more worried about it is not that people are turning around. It's that, I mean, they've got our kids. Our kids are
yeah,
growing up into leftism. So, I mean, you lose whole generations to a political ideology that
yes,
is harmful. I mean, it's hard to turn back from that. I mean, they may have to get into their 50s and 60s to start thinking, okay, yeah, this isn't right. It doesn't matter what you as parents tell them sometimes. If everywhere else is telling them something completely opposite of what you're telling them.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm happy that a lot of people are making the switch, but at the same time, I mean, that is the problem with the schools. We're losing our kids to the ideologies that, we're actively combating, but it's happening in colleges. I mean, I've known, some of my daughter's friends, I've known other parents that their kids go to college and they think you think that you've got them kind of set on the right path, and they come from college and are completely different people because, the political hooks got into them, and sometimes it doesn't matter, and sometimes they're going to rebel against their parents either way. So
I'm going to share something
that's
with
my
you.
worry, but I mean, that may be more black pilled than it needs to be. I mean, I would much prefer your view that it's growing.
Well, let's figure this out though, because I do also share that belief.
Hmm.
I do think things are going to get a lot worse before they get better.
Yeah.
But I do think they're gonna get better. I guess you could say I got black pilled first, and then I got white pilled. So
Right.
so I don't know, in the order of pills. You gotta take the black pill before you take the white pill. But we are raising entire generations in woke ideology, at least if kids are in the public school, if they're consuming any of mainstream culture, like what's on the news, what's on television, and the internet and stuff. And I just saw this poll. This is what you're making me think of, from the Wall Street Journal, and it was released on March 27th. I'm looking at it. I'm not looking at the Wall Street Journal. I'm looking at the National Catholic Register, which is talking about the poll. But it
Right.
said in the poll, religion, patriotism, and having children have all diminished in importance to Americans. And the drop was really significant. Look at this. When asked about certain values and whether they consider them to be very important, 39% said religion was very important to them. By contrast, in 1998, 62% of respondents said religion was very important. So it went from
Yeah.
62% to 39%, not a very long period of time.
A lot of that is our fault, though.
Yeah.
Well, the millennials, I guess, have been a pretty selfish generation. They've thought about themselves a lot more than how they're raising their kids, that kind of thing.
Or they don't even want kids. Look
And
at this. They said
yeah, they don't want them.
having kids, only 30% said having kids is very important, compared with 59%. So these things are like cut in half.
Yeah. And I think that's the morals that they had instilled in them. I mean, so I think they're just reflecting, what they were taught.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that this generation of parents has been very selfish, and that automatically, I mean, that kind of leads to the kids having that selfish mentality too. Not having kids is a selfish thing to do. I mean, that our whole purpose is to, procreate, really. And I mean, actively choosing not to have kids. So I think that's an issue. I think the patriotism is definitely an issue because, I mean, how many polls do we see now outside of this one that are you proud of America? Almost everybody on the left now answers no.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not everyday American, but if you're in one of the big cities or if you're politically active at all, you're answering that as no now.
Yeah.
And the Republicans are starting to get there because it's hard to be proud of what we're exporting to the rest of the world right now.
Of what we're becoming.
I love this country and I love patriotism, but at the same time, what we're putting out right now, not much to be proud of there.
That was probably the most significant drop. I'm going to put this back up just for a second. You're mentioning the patriotism. It said only 38% of people said patriotism is very important, compared with 70% in 1998.
Yeah. And that was
61% in 2019, not that long ago.
Yeah. And in 98, I mean, that's pre 9/11. Patriotism went up after 9/11, and then it has sunk. And I think if you were to take this poll next week or even today, I think that number is going to, nosedive because of what happened yesterday with former president being indicted. I mean, we've just taken a plunge off of another cliff in this country that you can't come back from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to affect patriotism on the right because the right is really starting to feel like we're the only ones. Well, the right and Christians as well. We're the only ones that's fair game to, pick on for anything.
Right.
It's gotten really disgusting how much. I mean, somebody made a comparison yesterday. Coming out as a Republican now is pretty much about the same thing that coming out of the closet was in the 80s.
Oh, yes. I've have a lot of, gay conservative friends or gay libertarian friends who've said that especially the ones who left the left,
Mm,
that was the scariest thing, so scary, and, coming out of the closet as gay was nothing. Like, in this day and age,
yeah.
no big deal.
In this day and age. In the
Yeah,
80s, it was still a pretty big
yeah.
deal, and that's how it feels being a Republican now. I mean, if I have actually been approached. I used to keep my MAGA hat in the front dash of the truck. And I've had multiple people from the left come up yelling and screaming at me that, it's racist and that's no different than having a swastika or a Confederate flag flying. And it's like, no, it's a campaign hat. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, it represents an ideal to a degree, but you guys also completely changed what the definition of all the words are that you're using. And, almost none of it applied to Trump or the MAGA crowd. And the things that were made up and that people believe from the media, and the regular everyday person, if all they watch is the local news and maybe CNN, MSNBC, they believe all this stuff.
I believed all of it. That
Yeah,
was part of, leaving the left and waking up, whatever you wanna call it, which was a very long process, and part of that was figuring out what was I wrong about, and I think that's maybe why it's so hard for people sometimes when they've been in an ideology for a long time to leave it because you really start at ground zero. Like, you get rid of all your preconceived beliefs and things that you think this is how the world is and how it works,
yeah.
and now
Well, I
you're
think
like,
I asked Gothics.
yeah.
And I don't know that I've asked you, but which came first, the political shift or the religious shift for you?
They were for me, they were hand in hand
Okay.
because, I was also going through a divorce and,
Mm,
was at personally just at my lowest point trying to figure out what do I want in life and who am I even?
yeah.
A lot of what you would call depression and stuff, and then at the same time, I think that in part, I don't know which caused which, but I was also leaving my ideology. So
Yeah.
sometimes I think you might almost need the personal crisis or something to happen that causes you to be okay with losing everything because you've already lost so much anyway. Like if
Yeah.
like sometimes people will ask me, "Oh, how can you provoke my girlfriend's really gotten into woke. How can I provoke an awakening in her and help her see I've given her these books. I've talked to her about this. It's not working." I'm like, "Well, your girlfriend might need to have a breakdown."
Yeah.
Like something, you know?
No, I get it. And in what I had DM'd you and we were, talking about a little bit earlier, um, that it that is exactly that's put into words exactly the reason I envy you as a new Christian, because new Christians, when you come to Christ at an adult age, you've had, a whole bunch of life experiences and
Mm,
you get to see the change in you
mm,
a lot of the time.
yeah.
Whereas when you grow up in the church, really only things tend to not be a change for the better. Typically you're falling into more pitfalls because, I mean, you start off innocent, pretty innocent as a kid. So
Mhm,
if you become a Christian at 7, 8 years old or whatever, I mean, you're probably never going to be more, Christ-like than that. I
mm.
mean, you know, I'm not expressing it quite the way I want to,
No, I think I see what you're
but
saying,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, you develop your vices, you develop all those things, which are kind of antithetical to what you believe, but at the same time, you know, you're still living, but you don't see the same kind of change unless you have, some impetus to make that change in your life later down the road. because like I was saying, sometimes it just kind of seems like you're walking the walk and talking it, you're more talking the talk than walking the walk.
Do you think that maybe though you could still have that transformative experience with God, even if I'm curious about this too, if you've been a Christian your whole life, where maybe you have it, because I fell into all these vices too. The difference was I
Yeah.
wasn't a Christian, and that moment of realizing like I don't know, I
I
can't
think you can always
figure
have
this
those
out.
moments. I
Yeah.
think people have personal revivals too.
Yeah.
And at some point you hit a point where you say, this isn't working and this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And yeah, you can have those awakenings. And I think people have them multiple times throughout their lives, because I think things degrade. And I think the only way to get back, to where you're supposed to be is, being called by God, or being, convicted by God of, yeah, you're not doing what's right.
Yeah.
Get back on the path.
Of renewal.
Because it's
Yeah.
always easier to be bad than it is to be good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I wonder sometimes about some of these mega preachers who get caught out in these really terrible sins. I just did an episode about
Yeah, I saw
what's his face, the mega preacher guy. I just learned about him, Carl Lentz.
Linz. Yeah.
Yes, and then so I sometimes I think maybe it's different because if you've been a Christian your whole life or for a long time, you're like, oh well, that's not a sin that I could fall into or something, and
Right.
that's dangerous. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to get
Temptation's
to
always there for anybody, for
yeah
anything.
for
And
anything.
we had that situation here in Colorado where I'm at. If you remember Ted Haggard's situation with New
Oh
Life Church,
yes,
mega church, that's right here where I'm at.
yep.
I knew most of the congregation. So yeah, that can happen. And what happened with him was, if I remember right, he was getting caught with
Young men,
gay
right?
escorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
So
when you start to think there's this verse, I forget where it's at, but it's about how sin is like a cat crouching at your door, waiting to pounce. Someone told me that before I was even a Christian, and that verse just stuck with me, and I think about that now from time to time because if you get I don't ever wanna get to a place where I'm like, "Oh, I'm good, that thing won't take me." Like, right now, I've been
right.
sober 3.5 years. But the minute I start thinking like, "Oh, I'll never have a problem drinking again," that's the minute
Yeah.
that cat's gonna pounce. And
Yep.
so, I just I think that's a way maybe God just forces is wanting to force us to be humble and force us
Well,
to
and
rely
it's
on Him.
also, have you read the Screw Tape Letters, C.S. Lewis?
Yes, it's
Okay. I
excellent.
mean, that I haven't read it in quite a while, but I mean, that's basically what the book is.
Yeah.
It's a demon talking with another demon about how you can get a Christian to sin and fall.
How you can get each one. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
funny because he has ways of like like, the subject, I think he calls him the subject. The subject's mom, her sin is actually, uh, 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 being too prideful or being, too particular or too it's not the usual vices that you would think like, oh, alcohol or
Right.
sex or whatever. Hers is being too judgmental or being,
Too
looking down her
haughty.
nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, too
Yep.
haughty. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but what you were saying, the sin, waiting to pounce, that whole book is just a description of the way you
Yes.
could picture that.
The way you can picture that.
So,
That book, I will say if people haven't read it, you should and you don't have time to read it, but you wanna listen to it, John Cleese narrates an audiobook version, and it's excellent because it's John Cleese.
yeah.
So
Well, and the author is the same guy who did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the
yeah,
Chronicles of Narnia.
yes.
He he actually came to God by trying to prove that God doesn't exist. It's amazing how many smart people and throughout history, when trying to prove the non-existence of God, end up actually becoming apologists for Christianity. So
There's a documentary I saw.
interesting stories.
Have you seen this? I think it's called The Case for Christ.
I haven't seen that one.
That guy, same thing. He started off,
Yeah.
he was trying to, prove that Jesus wasn't real, didn't exist, and he ended up coming to God over the course of it. But
Hmm.
I think that's happened a number of times.
Yeah.
Um,
And then they're very outspoken about it usually because, I mean, they get more convinced than most people.
yeah, yes,
I mean, because they were actively trying to disprove it. So,
right.
and
It's a um, what is that? Like with me, I don't want to be a zealot, but I do have a lot of excitement sometimes about, "Oh, this is the better way to live."
yeah,
Like, let me tell you, all my old friends. I'm gonna be that
yeah, it's
person who's like, "You need Jesus."
yeah, it can be it can be one of those things where you get little excitements like, um, cooking pork chops in the oven. But then the first time that you go out and buy a smoker, and the first time you make pork chops in a smoker, so much better. So
Yeah, and then you're
it's one
talking
of
to
those things where it's
everybody
just
about it.
like, why did I never do this before?
Right, and it's new
Yeah.
to you, so you wanna share the knowledge, like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
You want to tell
guys."
everybody, hey,
Yeah.
go buy a Traeger and get all the meat you can and throw it in there.
Right. That's how I
Yep.
felt, Brahma, when I first started reading the Bible as an adult and really trying to consider what Jesus was saying. I'm like,
Hmm.
some of these things that were revelation, I think I joke about it, but it's true. I was, going around like, "Hey, you guys, it's the Bible says don't lie." Like,
Yeah.
that would have saved me a lot of heartache. Like, you know, some of these guidelines are really good.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of them actually make your life better if you live by them.
Right. Sort of common sense. Anyways.
Yeah. And I think that's why Bible study is important, though, because you can read the Bible multiple times and get different things out of different parts of the Bible each time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like like I said, I attend church online. It's not the same as being in a congregation. But when I do, go into a church, trying out new churches around here, because we've got tons of them, and there's just in the it's been over 20 years that I've lived here. I've just never found one that I really felt as at home as I did in some of the others. So when churches started going online, I just started, going back to the churches that I liked back in the day.
Oh, nice.
But you find that if you don't go to church for a long time, or don't even do the online thing, just don't go to church, almost always when you go sit in the pews, somehow the verse that they're teaching that day will convict you on something.
Yes.
It's
I've
weird
found this. This
because it
happened to
may not
me.
even be what the talk is about, but it's going to needle at you that this is what's going on with me, even though that may not be what the point that they were trying to get across, the pastor
Exactly.
that day.
At Brahma, I've had this happen, and where a particular maybe there's some lesson God's trying or something God wants me to do, and he has to keep being very, very heavy-handed about it because I can be in denial. And
Yeah.
then that one thing, it won't even, well, you're right, like, sometimes it's not even the subject of the sermon, but it's one verse that was read among others, and then it just is like, "That's you need to pay attention to this." And
Yeah.
I'll hear that same verse several times in a week in different contexts, and it's like, that's
He's
just
talking directly at me right now,
yeah,
not the congregation. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
weird how it happens.
Well, hey, if you and your lady ever visit Texas, you are welcome to visit our church. We meet in a guitar shop, so it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we might be moving soon. We'll see, um, but I'm very
Right
fortunate.
after redoing all the stuff on the house?
No, no, I mean, the church might be moving. We might have found a new
Oh, okay.
space. Yeah,
I
we
thought
were
you were saying that you guys might be
no,
moving. It's like,
no,
you just got everything.
no, we're here for life. This is our dream home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the church, we were meeting in a old historic theater, and then they kicked us out when my pastor and a couple women from my church spoke at a city council meeting.
Mhm.
And then I spoke after we got kicked out. So we're back to the guitar shop and have been looking for a new space since then. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That
it's
was
fun.
that's one of the things that I've been rather upset with the church about is not being more political lately.
Mhm.
Um, and some of them being actively, wrong about certain things. I had a pastor that I really liked for a long time that was full bore uh, BLM when it came about. And it was
Mm.
like, are you reading anything that they're saying? Are you
Yeah.
watching what they're doing? You know,
About the family?
What's that? Yeah,
about the
about the
family.
nuclear family, about everything that was on their website, and it was like, uh, no, I'm not going to listen to you on this one. You're dead wrong. And most churches are just scared to be political, and I get it. I mean, the whole charitable tax thing and all that stuff, but at some point you got to look around the country and be like, no, we're supposed to be the light, not, cowering and separating ourselves from everything.
Yes.
The church
Courageous.
needs to be actively getting involved in politics right now
I agree.
because the world is crushing out Christianity actively and crushing out the traditions and ideals that really the Bible teaches in general. I mean, there's so much right now that's going on that is completely anti-Bible. And they may not even look at it that way, and people in the church may not look at it that way. But that's where those slippery slopes are leading to, is trying to snuff out Christianity altogether. And
I think
at
so.
some point you've got to be involved. So,
The
and that's what
past
got me into YouTube, was really wanting to have a voice somewhere instead of talking to myself or bugging the same 10 friends that, don't really like talking politics or don't like talking religion. I can
Yeah,
find people that want to here. So it
exactly.
became my outlet,
I love it.
and it's
Well,
fun.
I love I love that I got to meet you, and I've had many blessings since I started saying what I think on YouTube, and one of them is getting to meet great people like you.
Yeah.
And
And we even got to meet in person last year in Dallas. Are you going to
yeah,
go this year?
when is it?
The Dix Division's getting together, I think, June 7th through the 11th. The con is on the 10th in Dallas. So that's kind of what the impetus for everybody going is. But I think we're going to maybe try to do something on the 7th or the 8th.
Okay,
The 9th doesn't work because comics is on FNT, but it'll be like the Wednesday or the Thursday. We may
okay.
throw
If
something
I can
together,
make it, I'm
which is still
totally
somewhat
there.
secret, so you may have to cut part of that out. But
Oh crap.
we're
Okay.
not really announcing anything. We're all
Okay.
we are all going to be there.
Okay.
All
Well,
of us are
I'm gonna
coming
try to
down.
be in
The question
Dallas.
is whether there will be a meetup of some
Whether you
kind.
actually do something or not. Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to be there. I have to look at our calendar. I think it's at the end of the month. I'm traveling with my husband for music. So if I'm
Okay.
here, I'm there because I had so
Yeah.
much fun at these meetups and just getting to meet people from that you've talked to online and YouTube, and if anybody's watching, if you get a chance to go to one of these meetups of your favorite podcast or show, like go, because there's nothing like putting a face to a name and also meeting other people from the chat and just a great spirit of camaraderie. It will lift your spirits to hang out with
Yeah.
people in real life.
I mean, you know
So
what we look like, but you don't know who the person you've been chatting with for the last 2 years may look like, that kind of thing. So
right.
it's not just about meeting creators. It's also about meeting all the people that
Yes.
you consider friends in your chat that you see all the time.
Yes.
For us and for the people in chat. I mean, it's just good fun. And for the most part, we've never had any issues that I can think of at any of the meetups. It's always, people get together and have a great time for a few hours. So
Yes. Have a
definitely
great
do it
time.
if you can.
Cool.
My first meetup was Dallas, and I think I was only 2 months in, and there were already people coming up to me being like, I really love everything you say. And it's like, that's insane, but
Yeah,
okay.
Dallas was crazy. I think that was my
Yeah.
first one too, and I couldn't even go. I was trying to make it through that restaurant to get to the bathroom, but there were so many people there, not complaining. It's amazing. And so trying to walk to the bathroom and everyone wants to, and you're talking to people along, there's so many people to talk to. I think
Yep.
it took me an hour or two to get to the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, that place had a capacity of like
Yeah.
170, and I think we had 300, maybe 400
Yeah.
in there, and spilling out into the street and on the roof.
The roof.
And it was 100 degrees that day. We were all dying, but
Yeah.
it was still a fantastic time. Everybody had a great time. So
So much
yeah.
fun. Okay, Brahma, remind people where they can find you online. It's also below in the description, but just tell people where they can find you.
Yeah. So on my show, on my Rumble channel, it's BrahmaBull is the Rumble channel. My show is Saturday nights. I talk bourbon and hockey. The show is actually called Bourbon and Boarding. So we just kind of have fun and get together and don't talk politics really, and don't talk anything else. We talk about hockey because me and my co-host, that 70s rock fan, like hockey. So it's a show where we get to, kind of talk about something we like rather than, the typical complaining that goes on throughout a lot of the shows the rest of the week. We wanted to do something that was actually, something that we enjoyed, having to watch and, take part in. Then the other places you can catch me, Comics Division's channel, Monday nights, Yelling at Parked Cars, Thursday night Throwdown. So Yelling at Parked Cars is the political show. Thursday night is the, culture and entertainment pop stuff. And then typically, I'll just show up all over the place, but those are the main shows. And then culture, casinos, Sunday night, late night. I usually go there and let my hair down, and we all have fun. So
nice. Well, you'll have to
it's
come
a little
back
bit
and
more
hang
laid
out with
back.
us sometime. Wednesday nights we do a pop culture show and I think you and my co-host Mystery Chris would dig each other. So you'll have to come back
Yeah.
with one of those.
I'd be happy to.
Cool.
Love to.
Okay, thank you, sir.
This was fun, and you
fun.
really are one of the best, nicest people that I have met on YouTube. I know everybody says it, but and even when we met in Dallas, I mean, I think you had been on the show that I was on one time, and I was probably a real no name at that time because I had only been there for a few weeks when you made that first appearance. And yeah, we had a conversation in Dallas. We took pictures, had fun. You're just a genuinely nice person, and exactly the way in real life that you appear on YouTube.
Thank you, but here's my little request. I don't like the word nice. Okay.
Genuine.
Now I'm gonna be not nice.
Yeah. Genuine, kind.
Kind's cool.
Awesome.
Thanks. Thank you, BrahmaBull. That's
no
great.
problem.
That's very nice of you. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on this Thursday night. Please go subscribe to BrahmaBull's channel on Rumble and also to Comics Division here on YouTube and on Rumble. And I hope to see you again soon on one of those shows.
Absolutely. We love having you on.
Cool.
And sorry for all the rambling, everybody. Hopefully you got something out of it. It was fun.
Oh, what would a show be without rambling? All my shows are rambling.
I know. I spend enough time in your chats to know that it can go anywhere.
It can go anywhere.